Hello, welcome to 5 Questions. And for you who don't know who I am or what 5 Questions is, my name is Erica Lessa. I am a certified behavior consultant, also certified in technology and training. And I decided during this time of COVID and being stuck in the house that I may start a new thing, and it's called 5 Questions. So basically what's going to happen is I come up with 5 very pointed questions, select somebody in our industry who has some really good content to share, and do a little interview. So we have Christine Young, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Christine?
Hi, my name is Christine Young, and this is Pico, and my company is the Puppy Care Company, and I'm in Carlsbad, California, and I specialize with puppies and recall work and enrichment.
Nice. Thank you so much for coming on and bringing Pico.
And I'm going to give him a long-lasting chew so that he's not demanding food the whole time here.
Perfect. And a good tip for anybody who's doing Zooms and webinars, those long-lasting treats are a lifesaver. I also have 3 dogs here, so if you hear them erupt, I may need to pop off and do a little bit of training, which Christine and I talked about before we got started. But everybody seems to be pretty tired. So we are going to go right into our 5 questions, and our topic today is puppies and COVID-19. So how does this change what we are doing with our puppies? Christine, take it away.
And I created a little slideshow because I am such a visual learner. And so I wanted to just put something together that was visual for everyone to see.
You know how much I love visuals.
There we go.
Awesome.
And did you want to ask me questions or just go through what I put together? What's your preference?
Yeah, let's do both. So our first question is, what is socialization? What are we talking about?
Okay, so socialization is a development stage that puppies go through approximately 3 weeks to 16 weeks. And I don't know if you guys can hear, I have the garbage truck backing up. So if that's too noisy, let me know, Erica.
Oh, that's okay. I'm sure it's only going to be temporary.
This is a time period that is a window of opportunity for us, but socialization and learning happens throughout a lifetime, not just in this window.
Awesome. And in this period of time, this 3 weeks to 16 weeks, what exactly are we trying to accomplish in this time frame? Why is it so important? Why is it different in this particular period versus other periods in the dog's life?
During this time, we are able to present to our dogs novel experiences in particular that they will see throughout their lifetime, and if they get exposed to them during this time period in a really positive, proactive approach, we have this chance for them to respond to it in ways that we've created a good setup so that they are able to have a good experience around things that are different and interesting and may happen later in life. And the more you can fit in this time, the more likely they are to accept it later on. You can still socialize them to new novel things throughout their lifetime, but in this short little window, it doesn't take as many exposures as it might take after 16 weeks for them to feel comfortable with it.
So would it be safe to say that situations and experiences that they have in this first 16 weeks of life are very salient and potentially impact them for the rest of their life? So if they have a really negative experience or they have a really positive experience, they carry that with them as part of their luggage into their adult life. Is that kind of fit where we're going with this?
Yes, it makes a huge difference. And I'll speak more to it with the slides because the slides kind of prompt me what to speak about within that. So the new pup, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so maybe we should lump the next 2 questions together. So question 2 and 3 are, what are we trying to accomplish, and really how long do we have to achieve it? So we talked about that very critical time frame of 3 weeks to 16 weeks. So for the sake of the rest of this presentation, keep in mind that the things that we're talking about apply to puppies, and puppies are in that period of time up to that 4-month mark, right? So why don't we just go ahead and go into exactly what we're trying to accomplish during this period?
Okay. So the novel experiences are something like, we have this little puppy here who has the little kiddie pool. And if you're someone who wants your dog to be around water, it's a really good time to see how they are with water, to not expect them to love it and jump in. And some dogs do and some dogs don't, but you have this little time frame that you can expose them to that and let them explore it and see how they do with it. And this dog has the life jacket on as well. So those are getting that life jacket on, getting harnesses on, getting the equipment on that they may not need till later in life. If it's the middle of the winter and they don't need the life jacket till 6 months from now, doing it during this little window is super helpful, especially if you can do it in a controlled area where they're having fun, you're having fun, and they are more likely to accept and enjoy that later. If you have a little dog and you want to have your little dog in a stroller, exposing them to the stroller at this time is important, but letting them kind of choose anywhere in your yard that's interesting and letting them figure out what's what is such a big part of this. As much as we want to do fantastic setups, we want the dog to choose to move towards those things and figure out if they can handle it.
And so, so I'm a dog owner, and I just got a puppy, and I don't have a lot of puppy rearing experience. And I think that I should just bring my puppy over to everything that it won't go up to itself, and just make it go ahead and look at it and sniff at it. And then if I make it do that, then it'll get used to it, right?
I did that before I knew enough years ago.
So what should we be doing instead?
And so it's that opportunity to explore, allowing the dog to choose and using the time, sure. And I'm going to keep chatting as she heads off here to take care of her dog. And we can come back. Oh,
Pick one.
So, that seeing someone with a young puppy on a leash going, come on, it's okay, come on over here. That's not what we want and what we see out there so often. Mm-hmm. And that's where it can be so confusing when you hear that it's so important to expose your dog to things. There's such a Goldilocks, middle of the road approach to this that we want to coach everyone to set up for their dog. Okay. And just letting the dog choose, you learning about the dog and what do they like and not like, and letting them choose to see if they're ready for it, and you setting your body up, being on the other side of something. If they're, if you're watching their body language and you feel like they're curious but they're unsure, and you are on the other side, they might be brave enough to walk across the manhole cover because you're on the other side of it.
Right. Awesome. Okay.
And this is a good visual, I think, of this is such a novel thing that's weird on a lawn that you don't see too often, the slip and slides. And this puppy that I was helping the owner with, we let the dog go check it out. And you can see in that top photo where she's just kind of like, what is this thing? And she's very tentative while she's sniffing it.
Can you go through, sorry, not to interrupt, but that's an awesome slide. Could you just go through and operationalize what tentative and what fearful, like what is it in the body language that you're seeing that would make you feel like that's what the dog was experiencing?
Sure. So like in the top photo, her whole body is set back and she's, I think she's freezing in this photo. Photos are hard to know for sure what exactly is happening. But when I remember the experience, her whole body is back and not forward. And she's very carefully observing, what is this thing? And we can't see her eyes, but my guess is she might have a pretty wide eye.
Yep. Great.
And then as she slowly, and just as she gets closer, you can kind of see in this photo where she's not sniffing it like a dog would sniff a bone and want to tear apart that bone. She's sniffing it very carefully. And why don't you share what you see too in the photos?
Sure. Yeah. So what I see is a dog coming upon something that it has no point of reference for. So something that it hasn't seen in its lifetime. So there's really nothing in the file of facts to refer back to. So trying to figure out safe or dangerous. And in the second photo, the puppy is making the choice to go explore, but you can see that I believe that back leg is up, that tail is tucked pretty hard, and there's a little lean forward just in case she has to spring back and get away from that scary thing. And I think in the last photo, I see a little bit of relief that she's, you know, been able to kind of just do that, finish that experience, and then go on with the walk.
Yes.
Yeah, so these are great. And this is really great to look at body language. I think that what we were talking about a little bit as a prep for this call is there are nuances of body language that tend to get overlooked with our puppies. So if we do see puppies, I know I tend to work with a lot more puppies that are maybe not behaving as we would say like an atypical puppy would. So they may be keeping to themselves a little bit. They may be shy. They may be aloof. They may not be seeking out interactions with people, other dogs, or novel experiences. And in this time period, that's a bit of a red flag because we know that puppy's experiencing fear. And handled incorrectly, that fear will become something more serious in adulthood.
And let's talk about that a little bit more, Erica, in the
Yeah.
sense that share with me, when you're seeing these dogs that are struggling at 9 months old, and the owners are saying that the dog, didn't jump on anyone, all of the typical stuff. If you can just share a little more on that.
Sure. I got really curious about, so I deal mostly with aggression, for those of you who don't know me. And I got really curious about the dogs that I was seeing that were having, I'm going to use a label, fear-related aggression in adolescence, which is anywhere from 6 months to about 18 months old, into adulthood, which is typically around that 18-24 up to 36-month-old range. So some additional developmental periods for you. And so these dogs were tending to start to be fearful to the point where the resulting behaviors from the experiences that were causing them to feel fearful was becoming biting and damaging biting. So I got curious about that, and I started asking any owners that had these dogs from 8 to 12 weeks old what they were like as puppies. And I would say that we're at about 75% of the owners describe their puppies as calm, polite, laid back, and aloof. And they say things narratively like, we had so many compliments that the puppy was so calm. It never jumped on anybody. It didn't pull clothes. It didn't jump on other dogs. It didn't go and charge. It didn't pull on the leash. It was very just, we had the perfect puppy. Is what I hear.
What I want to interject there is 9 times out of 10, I'm not, as a puppy expert, seeing those puppies because they're not calling me because they don't have the overconfident dog on the countertop that they need to help with.
Yeah,
luckily I've seen some of these puppies where when I have a puppy client that the breeder sends home this dog, I can help them from the get-go and create some resilience from the get-go, because as a trainer, I can see that there's fear and anxiety mixed into those things that to someone who has less experience than us, they just feel the dog is laid back and quiet.
Yeah. And those dogs, I have had the opportunity to work with some of those dogs very early on because those puppies chose to exhibit aggressive behaviors earlier than 6 months. And when that happens, then the owners are really concerned about what that means for the puppy. And owners are great because they do tend to know it when they see it. Like most of my owners can tell me when a puppy is using their mouth to play or to grab or to tug versus when they're intent on doing harm to somebody. So that's been helpful. And dogs that are showing those kind of fearful behaviors prior to 4 months old, they need a very specific socialization schedule. They need very specific exercises to help them be in the best possible position to overcome some of that fear. And I have to say that, some puppies we know don't come out of that. So that's a tough one.
Yeah, and I thought I'd just skip ahead to the body language since we're on it.
Yeah, awesome.
And we can go backwards after this, but like the slip and slide experience, that client learned a lot about body language before I had them exposing their dog to something scary in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And learning about, if all as we did today was helped anyone learn more about body language, I'd be happy. And, things like looking at this puppy who's yawning, the yawn, of course, with puppies, when they're tired, they're going to yawn, but a yawn can also be a stress signal, a displacement signal of this is too much, you're asking too much of me.
Yep.
And this other puppy that is wide-eyed, whale eye is what we call it, is having a tough time with the experience. And often, this puppy also has what many people call that guilty look. And that's not a dog who's feeling guilty.
No.
And I'm going to let you expand on that, Erica.
Sure. So we know that the guilty feeling is more about response to an environmental change where the dog is trying to get the scary thing to either cease or go away. So it's more about appeasement. So it's about approaching the thing or the person that is scaring them and trying to get them to take it down a notch. So this poor little pup, whoever's standing over him, he's basically saying to this person, anthropomorphizing him at best, please relax, take it down a notch. I am scared. You're freaking me out. And we just need everything to slow down. So we do know, and if anybody needs any more research on it, that dogs don't have guilt in their emotional toolkit. We do know that it's been studied. There's been a couple of really fun research projects done on it. So we know that this is a way, this is a response to something in the environment that's scaring them to try to make that come down in intensity.
And often we'll see this with a young puppy when they've peed inside and mom or dad's a little upset with them peeing inside, and they think that the dog feels guilty for peeing inside.
Yeah.
And they don't feel guilty for peeing inside. They're scared about what's going to happen because mom and dad's upset.
Yeah.
And so with potty training, it's really important to not get upset with your dogs.
Yeah.
That just causes them to go hide and
Yep.
pee somewhere in the house where you can't find it till later.
And
we won't go too much into house training.
Yeah,
We'll stick with socialization, but maybe let's just talk about how growling is something that we want to pay attention to, but it's not always bad. And can you expand on that, Erica?
Sure. And also, even if it is bad, we need it. We need it. We want it. We want to hear it. Doing what I do, I work with a lot of dogs where the growl has been punished out. The dog loses a big part of its ability to communicate to humans when they're not feeling well, or when they're scared, or when they're frightened, or when they're about to bite. And that can happen at a very early age. So there's lots of reasons for puppies to growl. Puppies can growl simply out of play. You can have a very vocal puppy who is used to growling when they're excited, when they're playing, when their litter mates are around, or they're playing tug. It's just a response. There's no intention behind it. But there are also puppies who growl because they're trying to preserve their space, because they're frightened or threatened. And also some puppies come out really early doing a little resource guarding, which is basically protection of anything that they have deemed a resource or having a value to them, right? So this puppy that's growling, he could be guarding grass. There could be a bone off camera to the right. He could be afraid of the big dog that's about to approach him. We don't really know. But if he is growling at something and he's snarling and he's curling his lips and he's showing his teeth, he's making his best case to try to get whatever is about to approach or threaten him to go away. So it is very important from an aggression standpoint into adolescence and adulthood that we preserve the growl. We want to preserve that puppy's ability to tell us before they bite. And this will prevent more bites moving forward if we continue to allow them to have that mode of communication.
And with resource guarding, when you can understand it with a young puppy, we're going to stick with socialization, but there's so many subtle little important things we can do at this very young age that can really start to shift that behavior and managing the household. There's so much you can do, but I'm going to jump back so we stay on track with the socialization part, because put two trainers together and we could talk forever about everything.
We will. Do you think that we can, so I think you're going to talk about novelty and dog to dog. Can we talk about that and overlay some of the things that we could be taking advantage of during this COVID stay-at-home stuff? Like what things are helping us and what things might be a challenge?
Yes. And what's so nice during this time is we do have more time inside to do things inside. And so using your meal times as an opportunity to train. And so um, a lot of dogs are afraid of vacuums. And if you're lucky enough to have these cool, quieter Roombas, that's something that you can prep a meal and have the vacuum on at the same time. And they can be eating their meal while that Roomba is driving by. You can be prepping and giving them a meal while you're opening and closing an umbrella, and just thinking of mealtime as, oh yeah, what extra thing should I do at mealtime that is some of the socialization practices that we can do inside now. And we just have lots of time to try on your weird clothes and hats and all of that. You know, instead of necessarily doing a training session about that, you could link it into mealtime.
And
Um,
and Christine, why is that important? Why is it important to expose this while the dog has access to food?
So we are able to help them recognize it as a good experience, because if they can and want to eat while that's happening, they are able to feel like, oh, umbrella shows up and I get some steak on top of my kibble. Fantastic. An umbrella can show up anytime.
Right.
And it's an indicator too. We want everyone to know that if you open the umbrella and your dog cannot eat their breakfast, that you've got to go slower and you've got to approach it and understand that they need more time. And just having that umbrella closed, laying on the floor and forgetting about expecting them to eat their breakfast and letting them explore the umbrella, it gives you indicators of how they're doing and how much training that you can add in the process.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good metric we can use. And to give somebody a little bit of geeky information, we know that when a dog undergoes stress suppresses appetite. There's a bunch of geeky reasons for that, but suffice it to say that if your dog is stressed, they're not concerned about eating or digesting or nourishment. They're concerned about surviving that thing, whether it's an umbrella or a robot vacuum or whatever else is in their environment. And so that is the reason why there is concern. So if they are not eating, or if they were eating and stopped eating or won't eat, that there's stress in the environment. So we want to make sure that we're aware of that and we start to dial it back and help them through. And Christine, I would also say you probably agree with the fact that if the dog has an overt stress or fear response to any item, that it may be good to call in some professional help to walk you through what a more structured kind of desensitization and counter conditioning exercise might look like, as opposed to continuing to expose thinking they're going to get used to it. We know that doesn't work, right?
Right. Put the vacuum away if they're afraid of it and get a hold of a trainer to help walk you through how to do it, especially at this age frame. And you don't need to pull the vacuum out the first couple of weeks that you have your puppy and hope they're okay with it. Let them settle with just changing into the new home environment. Don't ask too much the first couple of weeks. There's this whole Goldilocks approach that we want to do in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important to not overstimulate as you're socializing your dog.
That's a great point. And, I just want to point out that a transition is a transition is a transition. So whether you're getting a puppy from a breeder, a puppy from a rescue, if you're transitioning a dog from one place to another place, one living environment to another living environment, there's transition there. And transition always comes with a little stress. So we want to make sure that we're aware of that too. So that first couple of weeks is very important. It's a great point.
Well, and I like the 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. If a new puppy's coming into a house or a new rescue, I often ask people to have the first 3 days be as calm as possible. Don't have the whole family over, and you can't now, which is good for puppies.
Right? That's a go.
Yeah, don't add in more for that dog to do than to explore and accept its brand new environment with all the changes. And in the first 3 weeks, we don't want to go overboard. We really want to let things unfold. And often you don't really know the ultimate temperament and personality of that dog for 3 months over time. And I like to compare it, if you're going to go to a new job at a big corporation with 500 people, the first 3 days that you're there, you're not going to be who you are with your best friends that are 5 people that you totally trust. You're going to be much different and careful and on your best behavior, or on or fearful if you're in front of 500 people that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of this, like the not eating when we're overstimulated, that's not just dogs, it's people too. So I think it's so interesting how we forget, because dogs are so resilient, we forget and expect more of them than we even do of people.
It's true. I like to use the dating analogy. When
Go
you meet
ahead.
a new person, best behavior, nice, calm, polite. And then you start to unwind and you start to show your real personality. And then you know what you're dealing with after whatever, I guess 3 months if you're lucky. Maybe it's a little bit later. All right. So yeah, I do like the Goldilocks thing. So we want to make sure that it's not too hot, not too cold, just right, not too big, not too small, just right. So we always want to play it in that just right frame. And we have talked about some indications of when it's too much. What about when it's not enough?
And that's where, like, I put this picture in here of the vet office with the husbandry work.
Mm-hmm.
We do have extra time now. And so in this generally 8 to 16 week period that new puppy owners have the opportunity, it's the perfect time to add in some husbandry work.
Mm-hmm.
And again, adding that in if you know how to do it, and doing this stuff in this time frame as your dog is ready, as you're ready, because you understand how to do it. And just to explain the other pictures here, this is the puppy that's wondering if she can get down the step, and it's fine to just wait. Those steps will always be there. You don't have to rush it. And this is a puppy on a safari outside, and a safari, letting them go and smell and take a break and move around like a drunk sailor anywhere that they want to sniff, really can help them relax. And so just let them be. But with the extra time that we have, exposing them to the things that relate to your lifestyle. In the vet office and the groomers, you know, that my 2 biggest puppy clients that I get more of than anything are German Shepherds and Doodles. And Doodles require so much grooming.
Yeah.
And for you to do a grooming routine at this stage, slow and steady, if you're going to do it yourself, it's important, and you can make a big difference in your dog accepting that. Yep. As compared to waiting until it all gets matted and tangled, or just sending them off to a groomer that's not a fear-free groomer. Right.
And even in this period now, if you're in a position where your groomer is not seeing clients, which I know a lot of them are, you know, doing it yourself now will get them ready to transition over to a groomer. It will make that a little bit easier.
And do you want to expand any more on, like, the, you know, maybe we can just give some examples of not too much and not too little, as far as what do we expose our dogs to, our puppies to?
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit before we started recording, that we think that we see some owners that I actually wrote a blog about this. They get lulled into this false sense of having the perfect dog because they think they have the perfect puppy. And that situation can cause a light socialization schedule. So dogs being exposed to too little, really. And then when they are exposed to the things that maybe were not taken into consideration, they start having these fear responses as adolescents. And some of their fear responses, although just big and noisy, can be pretty scary and off-putting. So those dogs, we would encourage the owners to get dogs out. And I don't know, Christine, I always feel like for some puppies, a situation a day on top of doing some, you know, training stuff inside your house. And we are going to talk about, we're going to do a little, you know, crate, teaching how to be independent, all that stuff. On top of doing a little bit of training in the day, maybe one event for the day is really good place to start, because that event, believe it or not, guys, is going to be very exhausting for your puppy. They don't have a lot of endurance at this point, and everything that we expose them to is taxing on them mentally and physically. So I think one good social outing a day is a really nice place to start. that social outing should move slowly, should move intentionally, should allow that puppy to make choices. Choice is a big, big, big deal, right? So we want to make sure that we're not dragging our dogs into things that they don't want to move forward into. We want to make sure that every experience that they have doesn't stop at neutral, but is actually a positive. So putting a ton of energy into this first 16 weeks to make sure that everything that they see is happy, fun, and positive, whether it yields attention, play, or food. If we can front load this for our puppies, we're going to give them a better chance at being stable adults.
And this, I flipped around to this slide so that people could have a short little list of what those one event things could be.
Awesome.
So people, and any of you who are lucky, full of people, spending separate time with each of the people that are in the household. That's an event, separate alone time with each of the people that are in the household. Doing whatever each of those people likes to do, and assigning what the person and what that person wants to do when life returns to us being able to do more outside. You can emulate some situations inside. So assigning and having different people in the household dress up in the gear. If there's a surfer in the household, getting their surf gear out and carrying the surfboard with the dog around and just having fun with that. Having the dog walk on the surfboard is perfect for the sounds and surfaces. There's lots of sounds that we want to expose our dog to that will really help at this time to make sure they're okay with it. You know, like fireworks. You can do some YouTube training with sounds at a very low volume, and you have the time now. If people were able to go out and about, one of my favorite assignments once you have a resilient puppy, or one event of the day, is to drive to a car repair shop where they're putting tires on and off. And that sound is just such an odd sound that you can get at the distance that you need to, further enough away from it. But it doesn't mean you can't set up sounds like that at home and experiment with that. And having your puppy outside in a crate in the car, if you're going to be moving your dog around, if you have any desire to do, if you're a dog enthusiast and you're going to be going to sporting events and you need to get your car all set up for the setup that you want them to be settled into, this is the time to be doing it. And that's the one event of the day in this time. You don't want to do 5 of those things with your puppy in the first 3 days. You want to.
Yeah, totally. And let's not forget the commonplace stuff that we might even take for granted. Basketballs, skateboards, scooters, bicycles. Like, they're going to be exposed to these things on a regular basis, right? I think that's a really great concept for us to kind of bring into our thought around puppies. What are our activities, and what do we need to expose the dogs so that they're comfortable with those activities moving forward? If you've gotten a puppy and you know you're going to try to have a family pretty soon, that's a great opportunity to start introducing strollers and playpens and what's the difference between a baby toy and a dog toy. And, so there's lots of stuff with just a little bit of foresight. We could take so much advantage of all this downtime to make sure that we are creating resilient puppies.
And I always cater to each client that I'm with on really understanding their long-term lifestyle. And I create the training plan around the long-term lifestyle. And so there used to be, this idea of let's expose the dog to 100 different experiences and 100 different people and 100 different this.
Yes.
And that's too much. That's that's not Goldilocks. That's too much. Nobody needs to do everything. Think about your lifestyle and allow that to unfold as your dog's capable. Mm-hmm. And I purposely, in this little visual presentation that I put together, made sure that the dog socialization part of it was not the first slide that we looked at, was not the top priority, because again, before I was a trainer, that's all I thought about with dog socialization. All I wanted was my dog to play happily with every other dog in the universe.
Right.
And I learned a lot and got in trouble from that expectation. I also got lucky, and I had dogs that did that. And so especially when you get lucky and have dogs that do that, you get in really big trouble when you get a dog that can't do that. And so another analogy that, tell me if I already shared this one, where I like the analogy of going to a club, you know, whether it's a dog park or just anywhere. There's lots. If you go to the neighbors and there's tons of dogs at the neighbors, and when you expect your dog to go and play well with every dog at the dog park, you're asking way too much of any single personality, no matter where they are, in the sense that it's the same as asking my friends to go out to a club with me and socialize and get along with every single person in the club, no matter the behavior of the person in the club.
Right.
And all of us can think of people in the club where we're like, oh my God, thank God I'm not hanging out with those people.
Yep.
And at a dog park, especially small ones, dogs don't have a choice but to be with the different personalities that they don't fit with.
Yep.
And so again, this is a real advantage that we're having in this time, that people aren't taking their young puppies to dog parks right now.
Yeah, I think that's great. However, on the flip side, right, that is great that we are relaxing some criteria that may be more common knowledge, right? The more dogs you meet, the better it will be. There is something to be said for quality interactions. And I think I'm going to throw this out there and you can tell me if you agree or not. It is far better for your puppy to have fewer positive quality interactions than multiple interactions with dogs that scare them, overwhelm them, chase them, or don't allow them to participate in the social engagement.
110%, because I even would take it further.
Go for it.
Some dogs do fine without friends. Some dogs do fine with one friend for the rest of their life, just like people. They all are different. And it's the human desire to have them be friends with everybody that causes lots of problems. And I do want to just speak, while we're talking about dog interactions and dog socialization, that I'm not completely anti-social, no dog parks ever. I actually take my dog to 2 particular ones here that are huge, and there's enough space. One's a dog beach area that has a particular entry that's very quiet, and I don't take a young puppy there, but I'm just wanting to speak on the issue.
Sure.
And we're just lucky that we have 2 places here that are big enough that you can kind of get away from and pick and choose and bring your dog buddy with you that they can play with off leash, because it's big enough and it's safe enough to do that there. So I'm not total anti dog park, but it's just something that if you're choosing to do, we want you to be careful and have the knowledge to do it in a way that is the support for your dog. And let me just talk a little bit about these pictures, and feel free to ask me questions on it.
Sure.
Where, again, exposing your dog to water at the young age can be, and doing that slow and steady. Many dogs don't like it, but there is particular training you can do slow and steady so that they learn to like it. And Pico's one of those dogs who doesn't love it, but I've done enough training with him that he's getting better and better and might swim in the ocean one of these days. I'm pretty sure, this is a stock photo, but I'm pretty sure these are street dogs, the 3 of them.
Yep.
And just you and I looking at them are like, yeah, those are street dogs.
And very different responses to what's happening. Yeah.
And they have some of the best social experiences ever. They have the space that they need, and they have the necessity to learn how to listen and get along in the space that we need. And where you and I live, we don't have that environment anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why training and slowly approaching all this is important. And I even think this puppy on top, I think it's mom looking at the puppy, and the puppy in, a little bit of a whale eye there, and is a little, it might be a little bit too much. It might just be the photo, but it was the photo to remind me to talk about, during this time, we do want to get our dogs to see other dogs. We can't get the friendly neighbor dog. Pico is in the photo with this other puppy going doing restaurant training on the mat there, and getting another, if you are lucky enough to have a puppy with a family dog that is okay with the puppy, you're doing really well during this time. But I do want to get people out seeing dogs, especially dogs that are not like them. So these 2 dogs in the puppy mom picture, it's the same breed. The more your dog can see every kind of breed that there is in the world, that they might be exposed to after they get to go out. Just seeing that dog move around is going to be extremely helpful.
Right. And let's be clear, socializing your dogs visually is a really good idea. Not every dog to dog socialization experience should include greeting. So especially I think when you're on leash walks, for me, it is very important for that dog to understand that being on a leash is a cue to connect with me. It is not a cue at that point to go out and be pulling towards and trying to get interactions and attention from other dogs, not at that point. So especially when they're puppies, you do want to set up their social experiences so that you can ask the other owner of the dog that dog is going to be, that puppy is going to be experiencing, a little checklist about what that dog is like. So I was not, I've raised a bunch of puppies in the last handful of years. I was not comfortable with allowing my puppies to walk up to a strange dog that I didn't know on leash and have a greeting ever. That was my rule for my family, and that's what I try to encourage my clients to do, is that, you know, I don't think we need to get into all of the kind of the pitfalls of leash greetings, but if you don't know what's on the other end of the other leash, then that greeting should not be happening. So that's an opportunity to teach your dog that a dog showing up in the environment is a cue for some beautiful connection work with you and moving the walk along. So that will give you actually some established foundation behaviors for some better leash skills as they get older.
And the more that we teach our dogs that observing the world and thinking of everything as furniture, including other dogs, and that we are the most fun, we are the Disneyland. The more you do that in this time period, the more you will create a dog that's not hypersocial. And whatever other issues that may come up in this time, it's hard to do, because again, if you're an extroverted person and you have an extroverted dog personality, it's very hard to not let them engage with everything and everyone, people and dogs. But if you do it during this time, it is such a benefit. And a couple of tips on the leash thing, that both of us are not going to do leash greetings with dogs, but a couple of things you can do outside with, you know, the two dogs in the family. The friendly neighbor dog is walking parallel across the street from each other is super, super helpful. In a cul-de-sac, I really like when you're parallel across the street and come to the cul-de-sac. If you're going to come and meet in the middle, create a human sandwich so your dog learns to be on the outside of each of you. And that's a good practice to see how much do you have the dog paying attention to you and hopefully your treats, so that you are important and you are silly, and invoke that inner 4-year-old so they chase and run after you instead of the other dog. And then you can also do walks where one dog walks ahead and then you can curve around and the other dog walks ahead, and they're getting to smell that dog that went before them, and they're trading, doing turns, doing that.
Right. And also, so specifically again, so because we are in this COVID-19 coronavirus situation, that human sandwich needs to happen 6 to 10 feet away from each other anyway. So your dog should not be greeting on leash, because you should not be that close to one another. So that this is one of the upsides of having social or physical distancing to manage what's happening with us in our world, is that we are forced to give our puppies the space that they need, and we can't encroach on that, you know, for everybody's physical safety. So there's opportunity there. So the last question, and then we're going to have to probably start to wrap up some of this stuff. I do want to talk about building independence, really, really key. But let's keep in mind that we want to also just do a quick list of the 3 top things that we can do to prepare our puppies for when things go back to normal. That's going to be a big change.
And building independence is my number 1 answer.
Awesome. Love it.
And it's not just for puppies. There's going to be so many dogs that will suffer from separation anxiety type behaviors.
Yep. I've got Weimaraners. They don't like that kind of change.
and so let's watch this little video here, so that you can kind of see if you need to condition a space for your dog. This is a little tip that you can condition a space. We'll watch the video and then we'll talk more about it. So this is part of why you have to observe, because she wants to tear it apart, and she could probably tear that rope apart. Fleece might be a better thing to tie with because it won't tear apart as quickly.
So cute.
So that little puppy is, that's a West Paw Topple toy. And the Holy Roller Ball in this picture too is also tied on the crate. They're both great little items that you can tie in, and you can condition a space by tying it in. Anytime we're doing enrichment type activities like this, we always want to be observing. It's not safe to leave your puppy with something tied into their crate, but this is tied in with the door open. So if your dog isn't crate trained yet, it's a choice to go in there and interact with that.
Right.
And it just have to be a crate. It could be an X-Pen setup like the above photo. It could be, and in that photo, the X-Pen has a snuffle mat, a nice comfortable bed. Make it the Zen Den. And if you don't have either of these, you might have a laundry room or a bathroom, and any of these that you can put a gate in front of instead of the closed door can help the dog acclimate to it slowly so that they can still see and hear you near there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I do think I would have to agree with you. I think building independence is going to be one of the things that we need to focus on when this health crisis starts coming down the downslope. We need to start conditioning then. I think we need to start working when we think we're getting back into some kind of routine that involves leaving the house. It's great. So if we are stuck in the house and we are conditioning independence, I would think that the other thing that we could do is definitely, once we have gotten our puppies to feel very comfortable in their relaxation space, their Zen Den, all of these really great names for this, that we should be leaving the house on our own to go for a quick car ride. That if we can do a nice Wi-Fi camera so we can look on our phones to make sure that our puppy is relaxed while we go on that 5 or 10 minute excursion. And the other thing that I love too is to, with one of my puppies who didn't really love being in the crate so much, we did this conditioning to the space. Also made sure that we were going in for naps. So we would go in, leave the door open. When she fell asleep, I would walk away, shut the door, make sure I came back before she woke up, so that when she did wake up, she realized that the door was going to open. We were going to go out for our potty break. So having them spend time where they would normally be sleeping inside of their area, their Zen Den, is also helpful because it allows them to equate that with relaxation, napping, sleeping, and they're not fussing or trying to get out. They're really spending their downtime in that space.
Well, and an easy way to, not just when we know we're going to go back to work soon, right now when you're working at your desk, it's a perfect time to get your dog in one of these conditioned spaces, in the crate, in the car. You know, you want to do it slow and steady, and especially with a young puppy, you're going to do short little sessions, but create that routine now. Even, you know, and you're going to need to do it more and more the sooner we know we can get back to a routine that who knows what they'll be for all of us. But creating the space for them to enjoy is important first, and then settling them in there on a regular schedule that mimics the schedule you may eventually have will be super helpful.
But also just building up, right? So the other opportunity that we have here that we don't usually have is sometimes people get puppies, they take a week off, and then they leave for 8 hours on their workday. Right now we have an opportunity to say, here's your fun space that we're going to get you relaxed to. Now you're going to spend, 5 minutes in that space, door closed, I'm leaving, I come back. And then we're going to maybe spend 10, 12 minutes in that space. And then maybe the next day we only spend another 5 minutes. So we have this opportunity to gradually increase the amount of time so that when we are ready to leave for that 8-hour day, that they've been conditioned through a series of variable exercises to spend more and more time in the crate. So we're not just ripping off the Band-Aid.
Exactly. And with a young puppy, you're not going to go back to an 8-hour day. You're going to have a dog sitter, dog walker come in and all that other kind of stuff. You know, young dogs can't be alone for that long.
Yeah.
And a quick tip, to watch them in this slow conditioning process is everybody seems to have Skype or Zoom accounts now, and just set up one in your dog's name. So you have two, and you have one device that you're walking with that you are watching, and one device that is filming your dog while you're walking around the block without them. And it is so hard to go for a walk without your dog, but it's necessary now.
Totally is. I agree. Yeah. And there's also lots of very reasonable webcams that have recording functions, cloud accounts, all kinds of wonderful technology that you could add to that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give you my top three. And we lumped all the questions into the visual presentation. But I think we covered most of the stuff. But I like your top three, and I want to share with you that building independence is number one for me. Seeing as many other dogs as possible is number two for me. And number three for me is having fun. And for me, fun is recall training and enrichment when it comes to dog stuff. And so what is your thing that you want to have fun with your dog with? And making sure you're engaging in that while you have the time to now. And what a great time, if you want to build a great recall, you can do the extra training that's required to have that turn on a dime recall. But we touched on seeing dogs, and these photos, even though we want you to drive without your dog, you got to find that balance. You got to drive without your dog. And if it was me, because I'm going out so little, I would probably, if I had a puppy, take more drives than I am now. And I would just take drives to places where my dog can see more dogs. I would neighborhood hop and find different neighborhoods that are busier with other dogs. I would take a relaxation mat, again, a whole other thing that we could go off on a tangent about, but just having a targeted area to sit down with your dog, that they were comfortable sitting in that place at home, and going to that new neighborhood and sitting down and letting your dog watch those dogs walk by will be fabulous. And getting out, if you can and are allowed to with your dog, to explore different smells and places. You don't want to do too much with a young puppy, but these are all things that to make an effort with your young dog to do it in a focused way for their age and for their personality as they evolve during this time.
Great. Well, I think we jam-packed a lot into that. And then of course.
And I just put this at the end because I knew we'd be tired too after getting through all of this. There's a tendency, especially for dog enthusiasts and trainers, to do too much and ask too much. And young puppies need so much sleep. And yes, provide them the enrichment, have that ball full of pools if you have it for them to explore through. But if they fall asleep in the middle of it, great, let them sleep. They need to sleep 16 to 20 hours a day if they're 8-9 weeks old, and let them do that.
Okay, that was a great exclamation point on the end of that presentation. And okay, and here is Christine's information. We have her certification, her management page. That's page for your management, or is that for ideas?
It is a Facebook link, and there's tons more photos there of different ideas for crates and gates and everything that we need to do to manage. And manage is something that if you can do that before you even decide what you're going to train, it's amazing. It can feel pricey and frustrating, and why do I need this gate here in my life? But believe me, if you set up great management, you have saved yourself so much training.
Yeah,
you're preventing those bad behaviors from happening. And by doing that, you're saving yourself so much time. Really, do we need to end now? Do we need to end now? Is there something coming up to the house?
And that last link is your enrichment event?
Yeah, and enrichment, every Thursday we're doing enrichment ideas, and in particular helping people really level up and learn to do enrichment in a slow, steady process, because a lot of people will try complicated puzzle enrichment too much too fast and feel their dog doesn't like it.
Yep.
And I just love that during this time frame we can get really creative with enrichment. So I'm doing a live with different trainers every Thursday, and would love to have you guys participate.
Yes, and I will be there this upcoming Thursday, so that's pretty awesome. Pretty excited about that. Christine, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Thank you for all the great information. And I think we will be posting this pretty quickly because this is really relevant to what we're going through right now. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me. This was always fun talking to trainers. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Christine. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. you.